Murugan Kanayapan, a 57-year-old cleaner, came across a brown box filled with water on the banks of the Kallang River on the morning of June 16, 2005. The box was sealed with tape. Murugan went to the box to throw it away, but the water damage was too great. Before he could pick it up, the box collapsed and a green bag fell out of it. To his horror, Murugan saw a neatly severed naked part of the female body in the pelvis and knee joints. The man immediately called police to report the discovery, saying that part of the body was so fresh that it seemed as if the woman had not died at all. According to him, there was no blood, there was no smell, and the exposed knee bone looked white. Police combed the area around the river within a 2 kilometers radius in search of other body parts, as well as possible evidence. The upper body of the woman, whose arms and hands were amputated, was found in a red and white box about 200 meters from the site of the first discovery. Part of the body was wrapped in a bag, and inside were several pages torn from old issues of a local Chinese newspaper. Both parts of the body were later examined and it was determined that they belonged to the same person. After receiving the samples, forensic experts were able to take fingerprints, and after searching the database, police found a match. The fingerprints belonged to 22-year-old Lu Hongmei. The only thing that is known about Lu Hongmei's birth, which occurred in Changchun, China on September 14, 1982, is that she was the third of 4 siblings, came from a humble family and always had strong moral character. All other details remained completely confidential. Lu moved to Singapore in 2003 after completing her degree, following in the footsteps of her sister Hong Wai, who left earlier and got engaged in Singapore. Lu was looking for a job that would allow her to improve her living conditions, and she was able to land a position as a production operator at EP Systems. In an attempt to improve herself and manage her finances, she enrolled in evening English courses with the intention of studying at a nearby polytechnic university and obtaining a tourism diploma from the company. Lu was an outgoing and cheerful colleague who got along well with everyone. At one point, out of the blue, she received a promotion and this caused unrest among the team, which intensified when she was promoted twice. The closeness between Lu, who was not yet 25 years old, and her boss Leong, who was about 50 years old, was obvious to everyone. His birthday is April 19, 1955. He also had an older brother, Gemini, who grew up and lived with him in Singapore. The man became an employee of the Sintel Corporation. Having worked there for 20 years, he attended Singapore Polytechnic and graduated 83 years later with a degree in electronics and communications. Thanks to his relatively good academic background, Leong also had a good command of English. In February 1996, he decided to leave Sintel and start his own company. But, as often happens, a qualified employee does not always succeed in his personal business. After Leong's bid for independence failed in April 1997, he decided to take a job as a production manager at Lan Technologies Microelectronics. As an adult, he married and had 3 children with an unknown wife. His family, friends, neighbors and coworkers said he was a devoted husband and father who always had a gentle and non-violent personality. Unknown to those close to him, Lu was actually Leong's mistress when she was initially hired to work under him. At first they were restrained, but over time they found themselves unable to contain it. They began kissing and hugging in front of other company employees. On September 14, 2004, senior company executives severely reprimanded them for inappropriate behavior at work. Despite the warning, the couple continued their extramarital affair. Lu's colleagues reported her missing on June 15, 2005. They were worried because it was uncharacteristic for the girl to miss work. When police visited Lu's place of work on June 18, 2005, they spoke to her colleagues, who told them about a romantic relationship between the girl and her boss, who was twice her age, so they decided to question Leong. Investigators did not announce the discovery of Lu's body at the time. However, Inspector Roy Lim saw Leong acting strangely, defensive, denying any relationship with Lu and trembling. The inspector also noticed that the man had minor cuts on his fingers. Officers subsequently took Leong to the police station. Under further questioning, Leong admitted to police 9 hours after his arrest that he killed Lu but did so with her permission and that it was the result of an agreement between the lovers to die together, and that he did not have the courage to commit suicide after that. He also said that he has been in a romantic relationship with Lu for many years. Because there were no protective injuries on the victim's body, Dr. Teo Eng Sui, the pathologist who performed the autopsy on part of the girl's body, was unable to determine the cause of death. Lu's head, lower leg and foot were also missing, further complicating the cause of death. Dr. Teo further said no sexual assault had occurred as Leon, 50, was charged with murder 3 days after Lu's body parts were found and no DNA was found in genital swabs. According to Singapore law, if found guilty, he faces the death penalty. The man's wife and eldest daughter, who were on holiday in Thailand, quickly returned to Singapore after learning of his arrest so they could attend Leong's arraignment hearing. The man's family hired Subazanand, a renowned criminal lawyer from Singapore, to represent them in court. Meanwhile, Leong's case was still pending. In his initial statement, he denied the murder charge and said that in the early hours of June 15, 2005, Lu asked him if he could return to China with her so they could start over. However, he replied that he still loved his wife and 3 adult children, so he could not do this. According to Leong, Lu suggested they die together because she was upset about their love. The man also said that the girl allowed him to strangle him first voluntarily to demonstrate the seriousness of her intentions. He agreed as he was equally depressed about the bleak future of their relationship, insisting that he loved her, that her death had caused him heartache and that he had no intention of killing her. He then continued to talk about himself. Leong claimed that he suffocated Lu with a towel until she died. At first he thought of dying in the same way, but he was scared and did not dare to do so after seeing the expression on the girl's face. Leong realized he had to act quickly because one of his daughters was due home at 6 p.m., so he made a hasty decision to hide the body. The accused then admitted to the investigator that he divided the body into 7 sections and removed the bones using a carving knife and rubber mallet. He then bagged the remains in plastic bags and placed them in 5 different boxes, completing the horrific massacre. Leong claimed that he then cleaned the toilet and his clothes. He then used his son's bicycle to take the victim's shoes and other items. After all the evidence was removed, he rushed back home and threw the remaining pieces into the Kallang River and other places. After cleaning his butcher knife at home at 5 p.m., Leong prepared to work his regular night shift at 7 p.m. However, during the police investigation, one fact emerged that seemed to contradict Leong's claim. Investigators found that Lu reported to police that her bank card was stolen and funds were illegally withdrawn from her accounts at several locations in Singapore 2 days before her death. In total, about $2,000 was taken from her. When police reviewed CCTV footage from the ATMs where money was withdrawn, they noticed a slender man wearing a cap and hoodie. Suspecting that the man was a Leong, they then speculated that the reason for Lu's murder may have been related to her money, causing the police investigation to become briefly confused at one point. It turned out that Leong has a twin brother who also lives in Singapore. Dr. Teo, a pathologist, said that if identical twins were involved in a murder case, it would be difficult to identify the real killer as they shared the same DNA. The inspector also suggested that Leong may have been hiding evidence from his brother, who may have killed Lu and taken her bank cards. Fortunately, everything quickly became clear. Since the twin brother had an undeniable alibi for the day of the crime, so Leong may have been the only person they saw withdrawing money from the ATM. The defendant said he returned the money to Lu and that the theft was a joke between him and her. However, authorities could not find any evidence that Leong and Lu's statements were true in their homes. The police also discovered that the girl was studying at school and had a strong desire to attend her sister's wedding as a bridesmaid. Lu was also a successful worker, and since she was sure that her relationship with Leong would not work out, she went to a dating site in search of a possible boyfriend. Leong's arguments about the lovers' supposed agreement to die together were ultimately undermined by the girl's optimistic behavior in her final days. Officers continued to search for Lu's remains even after the man was taken into custody. A special squad of 30 policemen searched the bushes and banks surrounding the Kallang River. The Singapore River was included in the search area. Police eventually searched the Tuasai incinerator for remaining body parts. All garbage from the Singapore River is transferred to this incinerator. 10 hours later, police found a severed leg and a decomposing head wrapped in newspaper in a yellow bag. Theo confirmed that the skull belonged to the victim, despite it being deteriorated beyond recognition, but the severed feet were never found. After Leong was charged with murder on June 18, 2005, He was brought to his home. A large number of journalists gathered to look at the killer: a rubber mallet, a partially damaged butcher knife, plastic bags, several Chinese newspapers with missing pages, some of the clothes Liang wore before his arrest, and the polo shirt he allegedly used to strangle Lu were among the items collected by police. As they left the apartment, shocking the world with their horrific crime, the forensic pathologist who performed the autopsy found several small pieces of metal attached to the muscles of the victim's left leg. Subsequently, the butcher's knife that Liang claimed he used to dismember Lut was compared to these metal pieces, and the result was positive. Police also searched the bathroom where Liang dismembered the body. Fabric fibers found in the boxes matched fibers on Liang's clothing. The duct tape on the cardboard boxes also came from the man's house, and the bags in which the bodies were wrapped matched those found in the bedroom of the man's son. Upon initial inspection, the room appeared pristinely clean, free of any stains or the smell of blood. Inspector Roy later found a small stain when he looked under the toilet. Based on medical investigation, it was determined that Lu's blood was the red stain. Finally, under intense pressure, Liang gave in and retracted his original statement, telling the police the whole truth. He admitted to stealing bank cards on June 13, 2005. While Lu was showering in a hotel room after a sexual encounter, he claimed that he used the money for purchases. Liang was worried that Lu might recognize him from the CCTV footage and believed that if he was found guilty of theft, his family and everyone he knew would learn the shocking truth about their affair. Liang called Lu to his home that morning, June 15, 2005, knowing that he could lose his career, reputation and family respect. He strangled Lu. Ironically, everything that made him afraid and ashamed eventually happened, but with more serious consequences, because it was not just the theft of $2,000, but a terrible act. Liang, 51, first appeared in court on May 3, 2006, nearly 11 months after his arrest, charged with the murder of Lu Hongmei. The prosecution's case was initially based on Liang's confessions and comments. Pre-trial, after the prosecution had completed its case, the accused took the stand and abruptly changed his story. He doubted the veracity of his confession and stated that Inspector Roy had gained his trust and convinced him to write an incriminating statement. He also claimed that the inspector showed him kindness and even treated him to Chinese herbal tea, which convinced him to allow the police officer to record his statement. He went on to say that he was assured that this testimony would reduce the seriousness of the murder charges brought against him. However, Inspector Roy has denied these allegations. He claimed that a week after Liang revealed the motive for the murder, Roy decided to buy 2 bottles of herbal tea because Liang felt hot. Despite Liang's claims, the inspector produced a notebook in which he detailed his report and demonstrated that the herbal tea was indeed purchased after the accused confessed. After this failure, Liang returned to his original story, claiming that Lu's death was the result of a love contract, concluded so that the girl would die on the same day, and that she voluntarily allowed herself to be strangled. The reason why Liang insisted on this version was that he wanted to be found guilty of manslaughter, since the maximum punishment in this case would have been life imprisonment due to the fact that he was allegedly depressed due to impossible love. However, police testimony about the young girl's genuine optimism and plans for the future cast doubt on Liang's account. The defendant was then asked to show how he strangled her. He previously said he strangled her with a towel. Among Liang's lawyers was Sinil Court Hee-san, who offered his services as a mannequin for the demonstration. Journalist and crime writer Selena Lam said in an interview that she saw Liang flash a distinctive grin as he demonstrated how he strangled the victim with a towel. It was unclear what Liang's specific mental state was at that particular moment. After a 16-day trial, Judge Tai Kwan handed down the sentence on May 19, 2006. He refused to drop the murder charge because he did not believe Liang's claims of a love contract. The judge also stressed that Lu, whom he described as an active young woman in the prime of her life, could not become discouraged and should have had high hopes for the future right up to the day she died. Tai Kwan emphasized that considering all the evidence, Liang had a motive to kill Lu, since he had the potential risk of losing his job, family respect, and reputation if the girl reported him. Selfishly thinking, Liang decided that he should silence the victim forever. Judge Tai Kwan eventually found 51-year-old Liang guilty of murder and sentenced him to death by hanging. Despite his alleged feelings for her, Leon was 52 years old when he was hanged at Changi Prison on November 30, 2007 after being sentenced to death. Friends, write your opinion in the comments, and also subscribe to the channel and watch my other videos. Thank you all.